Hello everyone, welcome to the Fly Racing Can-Am GNCC post-race show here on digitaloffroad.com. I'm your host Jason Hooper, going to bring you all the action from the FMF Steele Creek GNCC in Morganton, North Carolina. That's round 3 of the series. Coming into the race, the big story was Charlie Mullins making the switch to the EFI machine, the machine that, he didn't have so much success with in the first few rounds of the National Enduro Series. Charlie rode the old KTM, the one he won the championship on last year, the first 2 rounds, and it didn't work out so badly for him. But we were wondering how it was going to turn out, and then obviously we had Caleb Russell, who took a win in Georgia, and there was a lot of talk. Caleb didn't finish in Florida, so that was why he won, because he was fresh and all those sorts of things. So it's going to be interesting to see how those storylines played out right from the get-go. Paul Whibley jumps out to another hole shot, which is just, the typical thing from the Axeman these days. But it wasn't long before Wibbs pumped up with arm pump, and Caleb Russell got around him and started making a move to the front. Charlie Mullins, his teammate, went with them, and those two rode together out front for the first couple laps. But, Charlie the report was he had some sickness. He wasn't feeling 100% and had a little bit of fatigue and wasn't able to, run that pace that Caleb was running. And once Caleb shook out the arm pump that he had in the beginning of the race, he just absolutely checked out on the field. We had a good battle behind him. We had Thad Duvall get up into the mix into second for a couple laps. We had Paul Whibley, Corey Buttrick. Those guys, they've really separated themselves from the rest of the field, and it was some great racing out there. We were wondering, Thad, we did the interview with him last week, and he said, that he's going to take whatever the race gives him. He's not going to force the issue, which is something that he was, known for doing in the past. But he got up into second, and it was like, man, maybe is he going to try and make a run at Caleb? Is he going to try and lay down some fast laps? But it just wasn't meant to be, and he took it. He dropped back to 4th, which is not a bad finish. That's 3 top 5s in a row for Thad, so that was a good finish for him. Paul Whibley really turned it on there late in the race. It was a clutch ride for Paul, especially with Charlie having problems. Charlie dropped back to 6th place. We had Jordan Ashburn in 5th, but Paul doesn't historically ride well at Steele Creek. So for him to get a 2nd place finish, yes, he did lose some points to Caleb, who was way out in front, but he definitely gained points on Charlie Mullins. And those are his two championship rivals. These are the 3 guys that have kind of separated themselves from the field so far this early in the season. And it looked like, Paul was back early. He got the whole shot, but he dropped back, and we're like, man, is this gonna be a repeat of last year's Steele Creek GNCC, where he just wasn't in the mix? But got himself back up there, and had a good battle going with Corey Buttrick for a lot of the race, which was good to see Corey get back up there. It's been a while since we've seen the Corey B that we know we can see. A guy that's a podium contender. So it was good to see him up there. But the other story of the day, besides Caleb just running away with the XC1 class, was Stuart Baylor getting out front early in the XC2 Pro Lights class and just working his way up into the XC1 field. It's kind of the same thing that we saw years ago when Caleb Russell would have really, really good overalls. He would sprint those first few miles, catch the tail end of that XC1 class, and just get caught with those riders, and they would pull him along to the front of the pack. And Stuart, he was killing it. He got up there, and him and Jesse Robinson actually were leading the overall of the race for a great portion of it. And it was pretty funny because even Jesse was pretty far back from Stuart, but he was still within that minute, that time adjusted minute, and he was second overall for a good portion of it. But so that was the big story of the day. The big story was Caleb Russell absolutely dominated XC1, and Stuart Baylor absolutely dominated XC2. I think Caleb removed any doubt from anyone's mind that he can win races anywhere. Like I said earlier, there was a lot of talk about, was Caleb, the reason he won in Georgia, was it because he was fresher than everyone else? Well, everybody had the same amount of time of recovery coming into this race, and make no mistakes about it, he was flying out there, for the entire 3 hours. He looked like he maybe put it on cruise control a little bit the last half of that last lap. The gap was over 2 minutes at one point. Paul dropped the hammer at the end because he was trying to beat Stewart in the overall. He knew Stu was coming, and Stu really dropped the hammer to try and catch up as much as he can. So I think it was a minute and a half or something there at the finish, and Baylor just nipped Paul by 1 second for the 2nd place overall. But yeah, those 2 guys were way out front and going really, really fast. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens the rest of the season. We've had a few guys just really separate themselves in that XC1 pack, and Stuart Baylor is without a doubt the man to beat in XC2 Pro Lights. There was no one else in the same zip code for those guys in his class. So Jesse Robinson, Jason Thomas. These guys are really going to have to step up the pace if they're going to want to be players in the championship. So some other guys we got to make sure we give a mention to. Jordan Ashburn finished a solid 5th. He switched to the 450 for this weekend. He had been riding that YZ 252 stroke at the first few rounds, and we know that he's supposed to be bouncing back and forth between different machines to kind of showcase the different things that Yamaha makes. So maybe the 5th place finish on the YZ 450 is going to let him stay on that for a little while. And Brad Bakken getting a 3rd place in XC2 Pro Lights. I think that's the first podium for the Obermeyer Yamaha Reigns Riding University Off-Road Viking guys. So that, they've got to be pumped on that. And then Jed Haynes finishing 4th in that class as well. So it's pretty solid rides for those guys on the Yamahas. But big story of the day. Caleb Russell killing it. Stuart Baylor killing it. We're going to head to Big Buck in a couple weeks. That's a track that historically Caleb rides well at. He came close to winning some overalls there in the XC2 class. This is Stuart Baylor's home turf, so he's going to ride well there, and we're going to have to see it. Is this going to be the I'm almost tired of talking about it. Everybody's been talking about it a lot. Is Stuart Baylor going to win an overall? Well, Big Buck could be maybe the best place for him to do it besides a race like Snowshoe where he could get in on that time adjustment sort of thing and maybe start on the front row or something like that. So we'll have to see. But, Charlie Mullins isn't going to be happy. He won at Big Buck last year, so I know he's going to be looking for a little bit of redemption. Thad Duvall, who rode really, really well yesterday, he's almost won Big Buck before, so it's gonna be an interesting thing. We're gonna have a few weeks off. Everybody should have time to be recovered, be healed, be ready to go. So we'll see you in a few weeks from the Big Buck.